UltraCrepidarian, memorize it, is a person who not only speaks outside of his area of expertise, he speaks way out of his league, but he also feels the need to announce to the world that he is an utter idiot. This is the word that comes to mind. I consider myself to be an academic. I consider myself to be somebody who researches everything that I say and willing to engage in dialogue and debate and defend and take and admit if I was wrong.
As he said, he is academic. He would hear things, he would go and research, and he will stand corrected if he is making mistakes. I think that is amazing. But what we will see is actually he is disgraceful to academia while trying to teach people new words. He taught a word which I don't think I can even practice how to pronounce it.
UltraCrepidarian. UltraCrepidarian, that's the word.
He's gonna make mistakes after mistakes and lies after lies. Why? So that Islam looks good. But what we will see is he is actually disgraceful to academia.
The Quran preserves some stories of Jesus Christ that are not found in the New Testament to this day, and yet were discovered recently in sources outside the New Testament.
Whatever is in the Bible, I don't want to, of course, remind an academic that from his own book, Allah confirms the current Bible. Allah is fall in love with my Bible. Muhammad is fall in love with my Bible. Sadly, 21st century academics has problem with my Bible. Heartbreaking.
All of us as Muslims know the story of Isa speaking from his mother's cradle, from the hands of his mother. Most of us Muslims in this audience are not aware that this story is simply not found in the New Testament. It's not found. None of the Gospels of Matthew or Mark or Luke, none of them have it. Also, all of us as Muslims know that the Quran mentions in 3 occasions the story of Isa and the birds blowing into it and they becoming real birds. Again, you will be surprised as Muslims to know that this story is simply not mentioned in the canonical Christian Gospels. It's not found. Around 150 years ago, in Egypt, a interesting monastery was discovered in the desert. And in it there was the body of a monk from the 4th century CE. What do you call it? A coffin. There were scrolls. That's what I meant to say. Multiple scrolls. And these scrolls contained gospels that are beyond the 4 canonical gospels. You guys following this? Of them is a gospel. Now you should know that Constantine and others in 325 CE, they basically got rid of all of the other gospels. There were lots of gospels, and Constantine ordered these 4 to be chosen.
Even children know what happened in the time of Council of Nicea. What he's doing is he's talking about topic which he has no idea what he's talking about. It is false and double false information.
UltraCrepidarian.
As he tells us, 4 gospels were chosen in 320s.
You guys following this?
One of the reasons why the 4 gospels in the Bible were kept while others were not is because those 4 gospels were earlier than others. They dated 1st century, which means they were written by people who knew Jesus or who did research about Jesus from the people who knew Jesus at the first hand. We have evidence of those gospels being used, and not necessarily all of them at the same time, but at least one of 4 gospels being used. Even from the end of the 1st century, Christian writers in the 2nd century wouldn't have said that they chose any gospels. Because if you say we choose the gospels among others, that means there are more options and opportunities. And also you are saying I was given authority to choose. When we look at the writings from the 2nd century, we do not get that impression. The writings are giving us that those people received what they were given. Not anyone choose anything, but they received what they were given. Disgraceful, those academics. They are just disgraceful to humanity.
I consider myself to be an academic. I consider myself to be somebody who researches everything that I say.
Liars. And he's academic. What does he do? He checked it out from his Muslim missionaries. He didn't even bother to go and check basic church history.
Once in a while we come across something from the ancient times. This was one of the most significant discoveries in the 1870, I think. Like basically last 19th century, 150 years ago.
It is sad that I have to teach Shaykh Yasir Qadhi maths. So this lecture is given 6 years ago. Today we are in 2020. According to Shaykh Yasir Qadhi, Gospel of Thomas, or the infancy Gospel of Thomas, he didn't know what he was talking about, because there are two options and he didn't even get that right. So in 2014, approximately 150 years before that, it's been discovered. That means, according to my calculator, I am not even doing by hand, it is according to computer, it is 1864 is the date when they discovered the Gospel of Thomas. Isn't that sad? According to history, actually it was discovered in 1945. Not 19th century, 20th century. 1945 is the time that it was discovered.
One of these Gospels was the Gospel of St. Thomas. And it is now available on Amazon. You can Google the Gospel of St. Thomas. It was one of the lost Gospels. And in the Gospel of St. Thomas, we have both of these stories. The story of Jesus speaking as a baby, and the story of the birds becoming real birds. And it is amazing that for literally 13 centuries, these stories were not known to any Christian community. Any.
This video was put up 6 years ago. And 6 years ago, he was still academic. Can you guess how much homework he did? 0. Yep, I'm sure as an academic he knew. There is even Google tells you, do not get confused Gospel of Thomas with infancy Gospel of Thomas, because they are two different writings. And none of the church people knew about those things. None of the Christians knew about it. What a rubbish. If people didn't know about it, why people write it? It was circulating in the time when your fake prophet was walking around in Arabia. That's what he heard those stories. People were talking about it. It is not in the Bible because there are historical reasons for it.
I consider myself to be an academic. I consider myself to be somebody who researches everything.
In the infancy Gospel of Thomas, we get to read the story of similar story where Jesus makes a bird out of clay. And if he thinks that gospel is reliable and it should be in the Bible, I think he would agree with us. That story confirms Jesus is much better than Allah, because Jesus creates the bird out of the clay and then breathes into it his own breath, and then bird becomes alive and flies away. Surah 3 and Surah 5. Versus Allah creates man from the clay, breathes into it. Poor Adam begs Allah to finish him because Allah still couldn't finish it. Not only Jesus, Islamic Jesus, in the infancy Gospel of Thomas, plus in the Quran, has the attributes of Allah, who is a creator. Yet this Islamic Jesus is much faster creator than Allah. It is not in the Bible because anyone who did basic, not even like advanced level, basic study on it, you would know this is 2nd century writings, late 2nd century writings. And you would know it is not full story, just the sayings of it, 114 sayings.
I consider myself to be an academic. I consider myself to be somebody who researches everything.
I know in Islam you do tell stories 200, 300 years later without any historical context or anything. But we don't do that in Christianity. It is important for us to know, are those stories took place, are those informations are reliable?
And willing to engage in dialogue and debate and defend and take and admit if I was wrong.
I think this is a good opportunity for you to stand corrected.
I consider myself to be somebody who researches everything.
But it is still helpful to remember the current Bible, whatever your problem is, very much loved by Allah, who is your God, very much loved by your prophet, who is fake prophet, but who is also your prophet, and which is very much loved by your own book.
UltraCrepidarian, memorize it, is a person who not only speaks outside of his area of expertise, he speaks way out of his league, but he also feels the need to announce to the world that he is an utter idiot. This is the word that comes to mind. Please start using this word and popularize it. UltraCrepidarian. UltraCrepidarian, that's the word.